Dahlia DiPolito.
She is the Boynton Beach newlywed.
Caught on tape taking a contract out on her husband.
The hitman turned out to be an undercover cop.
Police staged a fake murder scene.
A car door opens, a woman gets inside, and then a murder is planned.
The following stories tell the tale of 3 women who were actually caught on camera trying to hire hitmen to kill their own husbands. We have a beautiful woman who showed no remorse when planning to kill her husband behind her back. Another woman who didn't know that the hitman she thought she was hiring to kill her husband was actually an undercover cop. And finally, a man who had to stage his own death in order to make sure that his wife was brought to justice.
Palm Beach, Florida. Mansions face the shoreline.
If Palm Beach is high-end Top Chef, Boynton Beach is meatloaf.
A tropical blend of strip malls, side by side with palm trees, retirees, and young folks just starting out.
This city happens to be the home of a young woman named Dahlia DiPolito, a small, unassuming person who doesn't look like she's capable of committing an atrocious crime, but you may be surprised.
She is Boynton Beach's most unlikely and notorious celebrity.
I didn't do anything.
Take a close look at this video featuring a police interaction with Dahlia. They are informing her that her husband, a man she has been married to for only a short 6 months' time, has been killed. She appears understandably upset, but there is more to this story than what meets the eye.
Is your husband Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, man. He's been killed. He's been killed, man. I'm sorry.
The police seem to be comforting a clearly distraught woman, but in reality, they know a lot more about what has gone on than they are letting on. What information is that, you may be wondering?
Dahlia ordered a hit on her husband and that they have hidden camera video to prove it.
Dahlia was very confident that she would be able to get away with this.
Nobody's gonna be able to point a finger at me.
First comes love, then comes marriage, then murder.
Dahlia DiPolito.
She is the Boynton Beach newlywed.
Caught on tape taking a contract out on her husband.
The hitman turned out to be an undercover cop.
Police staged a fake murder scene.
For 6 years, hounded by the press, but never saying a word. Until now.
So how did we get here? How did a woman like this get involved in such a horrific crime? Well, let's take a look back. Back in December of 2015, Dahlia sported a lavender blouse with jeans and carefully curled hair as she walked down the sidewalk alongside a reporter. She looks completely normal, like she belongs there. The only difference? She's wearing an ankle monitor that is tracking her every move. This is not something that happens very often, but it's Dahlia's chance, and maybe one of the few that she has left, to try to prove her innocence to the public. Unlike many people who may be awaiting trial due to an accusation of solicitation to commit murder, Dahlia was permitted to wait things out in the comfort of her own home. But she certainly would not be considered free.
That's what it looks like. And it doesn't come off at all.
While awaiting the trial, Dahlia was being medicated for both depression and anxiety. She found relief by turning to her faith and listening to worship music.
I feel like I'm, casting away the negativity and just really bringing in light.
But despite finding momentary peace from time to time, Dahlia's future was incredibly unpredictable. And from many lenses, it didn't look very hopeful.
What's been the hardest part?
Not knowing when it's over, not being able to leave, watching everybody around me being able to come and go as they want, and I can't do that, and just trying to be happy for them as they're coming back and forth and stuff.
For Dahlia, this story begins when she met a man named Mike DiPolito, who she claims she thought was going to be her soulmate. Mike was a successful, self-employed businessman who was very into working out and taking care of his health. He was more than 10 years older than Dahlia, but nonetheless, they supposedly had amazing chemistry and really hit it off.
What was your initial impression of Mike DiPolito?
Charming. He was really, really engaging, and I felt a really strong connection.
Mike was attracted to Dahlia as well, although perhaps for different reasons.
I guess we were active sexually. That seemed to be on point. We seemed to hit it off really quick.
Well, there's that. But looking back, there was probably some other things Mike had to offer that would have also seemed attractive to Dahlia. He owned this beautiful Porsche and a nice-looking condo in a very fancy complex. He was really doing quite well for himself.
I would say I was naive in that I just never imagined something as crazy as what happened would happen. You know, you would never see that coming.
This is the community where the crime occurred. And you could argue even much of the nation who had heard of this case has a certain opinion about who Dahlia is.
When people hear the name Dahlia Dippolito, what do you think comes to mind?
Everything negative. All the headlines, the person they're describing, it's definitely not me.
So who's the real Dahlia? Or at least the version of herself that she wants to be known? Dahlia wanted the world to take a look back at her childhood. She was a normal, happy girl who attended Catholic school and enjoyed dancing and sports.
What were your hopes for her?
To grow up, be married, be happy, and have kids.
Dahlia ended up going to college and earning a real estate license, which would help her earn a spot in beautiful southern Florida. She fit in well with the community there. In fact, she seemed to be closer to reaching her dream life than ever before. But what she didn't know at that time was that Mike, the man she was supposedly falling in love with, was married to someone else.
I was told that he was going through the divorce proceedings.
Would you have had a problem had that not been the case, if he just was a married guy who was looking for some fun on the side?
Yes.
Mike was clearly not a perfect person, but in his eyes, neither was Dahlia. He claimed that his girlfriend wasn't just selling real estate, but had an occupation as an escort.
Well, I didn't meet her in church. That's obvious. Needless to say, you know, I was married. I made a bad decision. I called her an escort. She came.
As it would turn out, according to him, this was actually how the two of them met.
He meets her on a website called eros.com. He was ordering an escort to keep him company over the weekend.
Despite how they met, they both seemed fully confident moving forward with the relationship. Mike quickly got divorced, and just months later, he and Dahlia were married.
You went down to the county courthouse?
The courthouse the same day, applied for the license. It took a couple of days for it to legally be official and everything.
Dahlia admits that this wasn't the most well thought out plan, but even so, it seemed to be working out well. Her and Mike seemed to really be in love and even exchanged love notes in which they expressed their feelings for one another. Like this one that reads, "The happiest I've ever been. Completely unreal. My dream guy. Love you now, always and forever. Love, Dahlia." Dahlia and Mike were not the type of people who liked to go out at night partying. Instead, they enjoyed cozy nights at home. Their favorite things to watch were shows like The Real Housewives of New York or Cheaters. But their interest in these reality television shows seemed to go beyond entertainment.
Did Mike love it? Did you love it? Did you love it together?
He liked the fact that people would be on these shows and essentially get paid to do nothing. It's just watching them at home or on their couch.
The more they enjoyed these shows together, the more the couple seemed to dream of being on television themselves.
He said, if they could do it, if you're watching these people do it, there's no reason why, we can't do it. We look better than those people, and why not?
But Dahlia says that Mike actually had a big secret that he had been hiding from her that ended up getting uncovered when a probation officer showed up at their home.
After months of being together, his probation officer showed up at our home, and I had no idea who it was. When he told me, he just completely downplayed everything.
As it would turn out, Mike was on probation due to a conviction that occurred years earlier when he was convicted of scamming investors out of thousands of dollars. This seemed to be make or break for Dahlia.
And that was something else that I didn't know either. I wouldn't have dated him if I would have known.
But Mike claims that this is all a lie and that Dahlia knew very well what she was getting into.
That's just silly. That's a lie. She's lying.
Mike says that in the years he was convicted for his past crime, he tried very hard to turn his life around and avoid any problems with the police. This was so that there was no chance of him doing anything that may somehow violate his parole and mess with his future. For 7 years, he was successful. But just within months of his marriage to Dahlia, that began to change.
7 years, I guess, prior, I had no run-ins with the police. I meet Dahlia, And then within 6 months, I'm probably pulled over, had my house searched, and grabbed at every other area in Palm Beach probably 8 times.
Why were the cops paying such extra careful attention to Mike after he had been so good for so long? It wasn't because he actually had done anything wrong. Instead, it was because they had been receiving anonymous tips that he was dealing drugs.
And I'm like, well, how's this happen?
What Mike could not have known at the time was that Dahlia was secretly working with other men behind his back, and she was up to a very dark mission. She hoped this mission would help get her access to more of Mike's finances.
Your life straight after this, seriously, don't ever do this, you know?
Killing somebody, come on. I mean, that's, nobody's gonna be able to point a finger at me.
In this clip, you can hear as Dahlia speaks to who she believes is a hitman about the possibility of working up a plan to kill her own husband. What she didn't know at the time is that the other person in the car with her is actually a cop.
I was a little shocked because I didn't think she was going to be that open.
By this point, Mike knew Dahlia wasn't the sort of sweet person she had once portrayed herself to be. But even when he was surprised by how callously she spoke of killing him and how confident she seemed to be about getting away with it, here's a snapshot of Dahlia walking up to the car in which she plans to speak with a supposed hitman. Her only cover-up is a baseball hat and sunglasses.
It wasn't like, kill him softly, don't hurt him. It was like, just blow the guy's brains out and, can I get a cheese sandwich with that?
It's August 5th of 2009, and Dahlia gets what may or may not have been an unexpected call.
Ma'am, I need to talk to you. It's very urgent when you come home. It involves your husband. There's been an incident.
Can you imagine you got your whole life ahead of you, and you're in love, and you're planning everything, and then you come home from a simple morning at the gym, and you find out that your husband's been murdered?
The big twist in this case, as we all know, is that Mike hasn't actually been murdered. But this isn't something that Dahlia knew at the time.
I don't wish this on anybody. It's just beyond, words. It's so hard to be able to just fully express.
Let's take a closer look at the real video in which Dahlia is told about her beloved husband's supposed murder.
Your husband, Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am. He's been killed. He's been killed, man. I can't let you in, man. We have to do our job. You have to find his killer, okay?
Dahlia was actually acting completely hysterical and asking to see her husband. The police continued to play along as they usher her away from the alleged crime scene.
If you want to help your husband, you need to go to the station with these gentlemen and tell us everything you know about who he knows, who he's connected to.
The next thing you know, Dahlia is being placed into a police car and hurried away to the station. All the while, she seems to be crying real tears. At least, that is until she ends up in an interrogation room. The camera is turned off and a sheriff appears and prepares her for what is about to happen.
I'll explain to you what we're gonna do, okay?
Once Dahlia becomes aware of the fact that she is being recorded, she seems to start acting differently. She appears less concerned about trying to be portrayed as a grieving widow and more about how others will see her current actions and behaviors.
I don't want to be videotaped.
Well, you're being videotaped. That's all part of it.
Dahlia continues to cry and expresses her frustration at not getting to see the body of her allegedly murdered husband.
I love you too.
No, you don't want to see him.
At this point, police are still acting as if they're dealing with a grieving mother. Why? Because it's important that they continue to play into Dahlia's own narrative so that they can get enough information out of her to try to get to the bottom of this.
Listen, is there anybody that you know that you think would want to kill your husband?
My husband's on probation.
For what?
He's for stock fraud.
Dahlia seemed to want to suggest that Mike's potential killer could have been someone whom he had previously stolen money from.
I guess somehow when he went away, some guys didn't go away. They left the country.
You mean went away, he went to prison?
Right.
Okay.
They left the country. And so somehow he was dealing with some of those guys because they thought that he owed them, and I don't know.
Dahlia did not provide law enforcement with specific details regarding who she thought could have possibly been behind her husband's alleged murder. Instead, she only gave vague details. law enforcement continued to press harder for specifics.
Well, I'm asking, if you know any names, then we can run these guys down and see what they know.
I don't know if the one guy that I'm telling you about, Pasquale, if he also went away or if he did it.
At this point, Dahlia seems to be testing the waters and trying to gather more information about what the police know. All the while, they are keeping their lips pretty closed. They are simply waiting for her to give things away of her own accord. Before long, Dahlia begins to give away to the police the fact that Mike used to battle an addiction, including problems with drugs and alcohol. Since overcoming these problems, she shared his daily habits he followed to maintain his sobriety.
He's recovering alcoholic.
Dahlia tells detectives that her husband Mike struggled with demons, alcohol and drugs.
And so with him, it's very important to be like on a schedule and, you know what I mean, like have a system and very organized with everything.
Get up every day, go to the gym, go to Starbucks. He would go to AA meetings. He felt was so important to keep regimented. He did that to make sure that he stayed sober.
Around the time all of this was taking place, Dahlia said that her husband Mike had actually planned liposuction surgery.
We were supposed to go to the gym.
Oh, both of you were supposed to go?
He had like 2 blood handles removed from here.
As Dahlia tells the police that she is used to showing up at the gym bright and early every single morning for a workout, they try to use this information to convince her that she's in the clear.
You're lucky.
What?
You're lucky you went to the gym. I don't know if you know, he was shot. He was shot twice. And I want you to know all this.
Do you know this?
Not exactly. I mean, they told me he was shot.
He was found in the bedroom. He was shot twice in the head.
What Dahlia didn't know at this point is that she is continuing to dig herself into a deeper and deeper hole by trying to paint Mike in the worst way imaginable. All the while, not knowing that the police already know every single detail. Let's take a look at how Dahlia behaves when the investigator leaves the room. She immediately bursts into tears, despite being dry-eyed just seconds before. But investigators aren't done with her just yet. Sergeant Paul Sheridan tries once again to get to the bottom of things.
There's no problems between you guys, no financial problems, with your family, you and him.
No, there's nothing.
In that police interview, Dahlia paints a rather rosy picture of their relationship. No problems, no drama.
But what everyone would soon learn is there actually was trouble in paradise.
Everything seems great. At least that's what Michael thought.
What he didn't know is that Dahlia DiPolito had another man in her life.
Dahlia knew that Mike had money, and she definitely thought she knew the best way to get it. Mike wasn't the only guy she had been keeping her sights on at the time.
She had several men wrapped around her fingers.
One of those men was a Florida businessman, Mohammed Shihada.
Mohammed was a 32-year-old actor who had a convenience store business. He and Dahlia met, and the two of them struck up a long-running friendship. But he would also be the person she would turn to when she needed something done.
She has to find someone who can kill her husband for her. Are you scared for the guy? Yes, because she's really, dead serious on getting this done.
Dahlia ended up telling Mohammed that Mike was abusing her and she wanted a way out of their marriage. But she doesn't just want a divorce, she wants Mike killed.
They meet at a gas station in Boynton Beach. Dahlia tells Mohammed that she's desperate, that she needs to have Mike killed.
What Dahlia didn't know at the time was that Mohammed had actually already informed the police of what had been going on. And they had planned this whole interaction, even down to placing a wire on Mohammed and a recorder in the car. It's mere seconds into the interaction that Dahlia starts talking about killing her husband.
Honestly, you work seriously on killing over that much money?
It's not even over like it's not even about money.
Mohammed tells Dahlia he knows of a hitman that can do the job.
He might tell you, to get out of town or something for a day.
I'm not going out of town.
His mom is not going to get suspicious of you or anything like that?
Why me? You know, knowing somebody, nobody's going to be able to point a finger at me.
Dahlia handed over $1,200 cash to be given to the hitman in charge of killing her husband.
I have a picture of him right now. You're sure everything else is okay?
Yeah.
You're sure?
Yo, what more sugar you want? You're planning a murder. Come on, stop, yo.
The police decide to take things a step further by arranging for Dahlia to meet up with the alleged hitman himself. But what she doesn't know is that this hitman is actually an undercover cop. The undercover cop, Whitey Jean, meets Dahlia in a parking lot. She has one more chance to change her mind.
She gave me definitely a sense of urgency. You cannot wait to make it happen. If you're gonna make it happen, you have to make it happen this week.
So I just want to make sure that, this is what you want. So you want to do when it's done, you have to have an option to change your mind.
I'm positive, like 5,000% sure.
And just like that, things fell perfectly into place. Police now have enough information to arrest Dahlia.
You're going to jail for solicitation of first-degree murder of your husband.
I didn't do anything.
Did you hear what I just told you?
I heard what you said, but I didn't.
Everything, listen to me. Everything has been recorded. You were photographed in a convertible when you sat in his car in the front of CVS.
This is when they tell Dahlia that Mike is still alive.
Your husband is well and alive.
Thank God.
Oh yeah, thank God.
Can I see
No, he doesn't want to see you.
Oh my God.
He's alive.
Come here, please. Come here.
But it was too late. What's done is done.
Can't fix this.
Why not? I didn't do anything
I heard you.
Mike, come here, please. Come here.
Dahlia was sentenced to 16 years behind bars. If you thought this story was crazy, stay tuned for the next one.
Ever thought your spouse was getting away with murder? Well, one Michigan woman actually tried to do so by hiring a hitman to get rid of her husband. And she isn't the first to take drastic measures that might make divorce look positively quaint.
A car door opens. A woman gets inside. Pleasantries are exchanged.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So I guess we got a little business to discuss.
Yeah.
And then a murder is planned in one of the most staggering conversations you may ever happen to overhear.
The woman in this video is Julia Merrifield, and she is talking about having her husband, Jake Merrifield, whom she has 2 children with, killed.
But you wanted to look like a breaking, somebody breaking in.
Well, we were talking about that too, and Carlos was like, oh, well, since I know him, I might be able to get him outside. I have a girlfriend who wants to move in with me, and I don't want her to be scared to move in with me. And if she thinks that we got broken into and then Jake got, Yeah.
Here, Julia is talking about staging a murder, but she's actually worried about what inconveniences it may cause her in the future. The person that Julia thinks she is talking to is a hitman, but in reality, it's an undercover cop whom she has spoken to twice.
Does he look just like that then?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much?
Yep.
Okay.
Except now he's got a tattoo on his arm.
Julia casually considers how she wants her husband to be killed.
You said, something about a gunshot, so is that how you want me to do it? You want me to shoot him?
Unless you can do it painlessly, breaking his neck, that would...
Well, I would prefer to use either a knife or a gun. It's quick and easy.
Do it both instead, it's painless, less painless.
Right. Where do you want me to shoot him? Do you want an open casket, a closed casket? What do you want?
I don't want an open casket.
But Julia isn't worried about trying to get her husband killed as quickly as possible. She's also worried about the potential mess.
Any way you want me to, but I just want to know how you want it done.
Really, whatever's easiest. If you can get him outside, that would be great. Okay. But, if you absolutely can't, I'll understand,
So you want me to, I guess I'm not understanding you. So you don't want it done in the house then?
Because it would be messy in there.
But Julia really had nothing to worry about because her husband was never killed after all. Instead, she was arrested. What was Julia after? Her husband's $500,000 life insurance policy. Something she promised to share with the supposed hitman. Prior to her sentencing, she had the chance to address the court.
I would like to start out by saying that I do not believe that I'm above punishment. I know that what I did was wrong, and I take full responsibility for it. My tears are not for your pity, Your Honor. My tears are for remorse. Excuse me. Fortunately, the 2 people who matter most have already forgiven me. My husband, who actually sits behind me right now, has already forgiven me. And the second is God. And honestly, they're the only 2 people who matter. I don't want to go to prison, obviously, who does? But if that's where God sees fit to send me through you, Your Honor, then I will take my punishment humbly and without complaint.
Despite everything, Jake really did forgive his wife and even spoke on her behalf.
I wholeheartedly forgive my wife for all she has done in this act of hatred. I know that my wife is a wonderful person. She is a godly woman, even so much more so now than she ever has been. And I know that this is a crime that is on the top of the list of the most, I guess, evil, non-godly things you could probably do.
Jake asked the judge to show forgiveness for the sake of the couple's 2 young children. Ultimately, Julia was sentenced to 5 to 20 years in prison for the solicitation of attempted murder. She was released on March 11th of 2020. If you were shocked by the stupidity of this crime, wait until you hear this next one.
She was a cop accused of masterminding a murder-for-hire plot, and authorities say the victim was to be her own husband.
You're watching a sting operation as it happens.
Are you Valerie Cincinnati? What's going on?
Valerie is about to get some very devastating news about her husband. What she doesn't know at the time is that none of it is true. It's all part of an elaborate plan to take her down for attempting to solicit a murder.
I'm sorry to be the one to tell you that Isaiah was found dead.
Are you kidding me?
Valerie seems to be in complete shock and then breaks down in tears. But she's not fooling anyone. Valerie is not surprised to hear of her husband Isaiah's death because she is the one who orchestrated it. But the twist is that Isaiah is still very much alive, and he knew about the plan. If there is anyone who should have known how illegal it is to hire a hitman to kill your own husband, it should have been Valerie, who worked as a New York City cop. She and her husband had been married for 5 years, and they even had a son together.
Thought I was marrying somebody who protected and served for a living. Somebody who was a cop, an outstanding citizen. And instead I got a crazed lunatic.
By 2019, the marriage had gone sour, and Valerie and Isaiah were going through a messy divorce. She was dating someone new, a man named John. Valerie instructed John to hire the hitman and give him $7,000 for the job. The money was to be converted into gold in hopes that it would be untraceable.
Did you really think she was going to get away with this?
I really believe she did.
But Valerie didn't just want her husband dead. Apparently, she had another person on her list. John's daughter, who was just 13 years old. She was jealous of the expensive things that he was giving to her. As soon as John caught wind of this, he headed straight to the FBI.
Working with the FBI, the 2 men in Valerie Cincinnati's life joined forces to bring her down. Together, they staged a realistic crime scene.
The FBI told me to sit in the car, and they took glass and they put it all over on the floor here, rolled down my window, put glass all over me inside of the car, and told me to hunch over into the passenger seat.
It was incredibly disturbing to Isaiah to have to stage his own death.
It haunts me every day.
But the staged photo was necessary to bring Valerie down. John recorded what Valerie did after being informed that her husband was dead. She was very concerned about making sure to cover her tracks well.
Delete my text. You're not keeping anything on the phone.
But of course, the gig was already up. Minutes after that video, the police entered her home and arrested her.
Yeah, put your hands up. Up.
Valerie ended up taking a plea deal, which caused the murder for hire charge to be dropped. She did plead guilty to obstruction of justice, which landed her 4 years in prison.
Is there a part of you that's worried when she gets out of prison, she's gonna try to find somebody to actually do the job?
I look over my shoulder constantly. There's not a day that I don't go by that I'm not afraid for my life.
Meanwhile, despite all the evidence, Valerie's parents are still standing by her.
I guarantee you my daughter is innocent of this.
If, or when, maybe I should say, you have an opportunity to speak to her again, what are you itching to say to her?
Why?
You don't seem to have the faintest idea of why right now.
No.
And so there you have it. 3 undeniably sick women who truly believed they could get away with hiring a hitman to kill their own husbands. Not one of them was successful. Why not just get a divorce instead of going through these great lengths? I guess we'll never know.